welcome back to Real Talk with Cari and Haley. Today we're going to talk about the difference between managing and leading, which I think is the key to actually holding people accountable. And so we have a great discussion. We've been chatting about this for a while now, and we thought we would share it with all of you. So Haley, talk a little bit about your perspective around and just your experiences around, how critical it is for people to stop managing people and start leading people, and why you think that's important to, being able to actually have an accountable culture, or to be able to earn the right, I guess, to hold people accountable.
Yeah, so I think that there's just this really great paradox that has occurred really within my generation, and I think moving forward, and that is
mine, apparently, by the way. Right? We just found out I am not in the same generation as Haley.
So the millennium, I was born in 1987. And so for, what we've realized, and I think what our generation, I think we are now like over 50% of the workforce in America are millennials. And what millennials have really started to enforce is that we do not want to be managed, right? So, but we realize that organizations need to be managed, but people do not want to be managed. And so that's the paradox. And so as a leader in an organization, what do you do with that information? How do you manage and hold people accountable who don't want to be managed, micromanaged, really? And so I think that the solution to that is, and I think people will probably think this is very controversial, but this is the truth. Stop managing. Stop managing people, because things are what need to be managed. Things need to be managed, and people need to be led. Yeah. So if you stop managing an individual and you create a space and a culture that helps to empower and inspire people to be creative and to be inspired and to have that autonomy and the freedom, they will naturally do what they need to do. But you have to lead them in order to do that. Wouldn't you agree, Cari?
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. Systems, technologies, processes need to be managed. People should be led. But, the main challenge I find in the years of my experience in leadership is the first person that needs to be led is yourself. And, they always say how important it is who you surround yourself with. If you read all of the different self-help books around how do you, level yourself up in personal growth and development, they talk about who you surround yourself with matters, and that you actually do fall to the patterns and habits and behaviors of the people around you. So I think the very first place you start as a leader would be to lead yourself at the highest level. If you're not showing up and doing what you say you're going to do, then how do you expect other people to, right? How are you going to lead other people if you don't lead yourself first? So I think that's the first question to ask yourself. Am I leading myself to the highest level that I possibly could? If the answer is no, then that's the first place to start, because you talked about this earlier, Haley. People are inspired by their leaders or they're not. They're inspired by the people they hang around or they're not. They're inspired by their organization and the mission and the vision or they're not. And so if you can inspire people by leading yourself first, showing up and being the best version of yourself, because by the way, everybody wants that, whether they articulate it or not. We all want to be able to be the best version of ourselves. We're aspiring to that, whether it's secretly or outwardly. So when we see people doing that, we want to be around those people, because we innately know as human beings, if we hang around those people, the likelihood of us doing it is actually much greater. So if we have that first self-first mindset, and then we don't try to tell people or push people to do the things we want them to, but rather really show up in the best light and the best version of ourselves and start doing it, we most likely will start to inspire people to do that, right? Which is going to be far more effective than telling people what to do, especially those in your generation. And I'm just on the cusp of it, you guys. We looked this up right before we came on because I couldn't believe I was not a millennial. I missed it by 1 year. But our generation, of course, is trying to potentially, manage people that don't want to be managed. And we shouldn't have to anyways. They will take their own responsibility and accountability if they're inspired to do so. Absolutely. So that's some of the thoughts that I have around that, Haley.
Yeah. And I think I really liked how you said, as a leader, really, I wouldn't consider, like, don't be a boss. Stop being a boss. Nobody wants a boss. What they want is they want someone to stand in front of them as inspiring them as a leader and saying, come on, guys, let's go. Right? You're standing in front of everybody and saying, come on, let's go, rather than standing behind them and pushing them forward. Nobody wants to be pushed forward. What we want is we want it to be guided and we want to be led. And if you feel like you're pushing people,
Mm,
those people are in the wrong seats, that they shouldn't be in your business in the first place. And the other thing is when you're standing in front of people and you're encouraging to them to come, you're setting the standard, you're setting the expectation, and you're setting the bar. And the
mm,
people who follow you are supposed to be there. And the people who don't, that is when that should be an eye-opening moment for you. And you say,
mm.
okay, you're not in the right organization.
Yeah.
So as a leader, what do? You don't need to be territorial with that person. What you should be doing is you should be saying, well, what motivates you? Where
Mhm.
can I help you? Where can I guide you? Because it's not here. You're not in the right seat. So, as a
Mm,
leader, what I'd like to do is introduce you to somebody else who might be a better suit for you, right? Or might
mhm.
be their culture, their what they're working on might inspire you differently than what I'm able to do, right? So
Yeah.
don't be territorial around a person. You don't own them. Just let
Mhm.
them go. Let them be free to discover something else that is going to motivate them and inspire them to, like I said, be creative and help them build the foundation to be the best person that they can be.
Yeah, because not everybody's going to be the right fit for us as a leader, and we have to be okay with that. That's the ego that
Mhm.
wants to be territorial and hold on to everyone because we don't like it when people don't want to be on our bus because then we take it personally. And the reality is that it's nothing personal. We all have our own, our own passions and visions and missions for life, and we're not all going to align, and that's okay. But if we're a strong leader, not only are we okay with that, but we're completely unattached to that outcome. And then we can continue to move forward in our own alignment, in our own authenticity without trying to force people that don't fit into it. Isn't it so much more fun to be in business with people who just get you and get your mission and get your vision? Of course it is. So why don't we just continue to be the best version of ourselves and continue to say, come along with me, and let the people that want to do so, and the people that don't, that's okay too. I think that the last thing I would say to you and to those watching, Haley, we talked a little bit about this, is one thing I've noticed, whether you are doing, well, first and foremost, you have to lead people and inspire them, and that's going to make them more accountable. We already shared that. Why is accountability so important? Well, we know in business or in life that the number one common consistent thing that we see in all successful people is the consistent action that they take every single day. They're consistent. It isn't how intense they do things. It isn't how much they do. It's actually how consistent they do the things that they do. So if we need to show up more consistently, and if we need our people to show up more consistently, we in fact do need accountability in some way, shape, or form, however we provide it. Haley and I think it's more in the way of inspiration and leadership. That's for you to decide, but that's our opinion. But what I would say is whether you do it one-on-one or you do it in a group, as far as the culture, you still have to have a culture of accountability. People should want to run towards accountability in your organization, not run away from it. And I've noticed that, everybody has some sort of feeling around the word accountability. Remember, how we feel makes us act or not act. And so we have to realize that if we have some sort of feeling around a word, we better actually talk about that and start redefining it. Because if we change the definition, we can change the way we feel about it, which means we'll actually start running towards it because we know it's something good for us. It's going to help us be happier, be healthier, be more successful, make more money, whatever's important to us, versus it's going to make us feel bad about ourselves because it's condemnation and it's negativity and it's pointing out all of our faults. If that was your experience with accountability in the past, then we as a leader have to redefine that in our organization so that people start thinking and feeling about it differently so we can get them to buy into it. And maybe that isn't every single day asking them if they did what they were supposed to do, rather sharing goals, holding each other accountable, talking about what has happened if they haven't met those. And, of course, sharing your own shortcomings as a leader too, because you're not perfect. You're not going to show up in the best light every single day. And that's okay. And in fact, if you create a culture where it's okay and it's a safe place to have that conversation, but to also create awareness of what happened and why am I not showing up in the best way? And what changes do I have to make for the better? Other people are going to be comfortable to do the same. And this is how we grow human beings and how we grow people and productivity in our organizations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, I would encourage leaders to hold the priorities
Mm,
accountable and to hold the
yes.
systems and the processes accountable. And when you become a really good leader and when you're inspiring people, the people in your organization, they're going to naturally want to just do the things that they need to do. And when they're
Yeah.
not doing the things that need to be done, that is when you need to question, you need to ask yourself,
Yeah.
am I doing a good job as a leader? Am I showing up and
Mhm.
doing what I need to do every day? Because if you're not doing that, how can you expect the people to follow
Yeah,
you and do the same? They
that's right.
absolutely, you're setting the standard.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that as we end this talk, the biggest thing is you have to look at yourself, and you have to
Mhm.
have a lot of self-awareness around your own strengths and your own weaknesses, and then figure out what is it that I can do differently today to show up as a different form of a human being and a leader, and how will that impact the people around me? And oftentimes that one small shift in you can make all the difference, and you'll start noticing changes in other human beings around you. And then you can start putting some of these other plans in place, but don't forget the importance of yourself first. I would say that's probably the most important thing that's overlooked, because we immediately want Haley to jump to a better system or a better strategy for holding people accountable, when in reality, we probably should look inward first and figure out what we're
Absolutely.
doing or not doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect.
All
Well,
right. Awesome. Thanks,
thanks,
Haley.
guys.
Thanks, everybody. See you next Tuesday.